Welcome everybody to our November meeting, and we don't have any members of the public today. So let's go ahead and start with the approval of the minutes for the October meeting. Did you all have a chance to review that?
I did. I'll motion to approve them.
Perfect. I'll second. Okay. All right, let's vote to approve the minutes for October. I will call. Rachel?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Elliot?
Yes.
Sam?
Yep.
Karen?
Yes.
Essence?
Yes.
Babette? You're still muted, Babette.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? Something. All right, perfect. Well, the minutes are approved for October.
You muted, Bryony.
Sorry, I was crashing my Zoom there for a second. Sean, if you will walk us through the financials.
Yeah, so no changes. 635.66, and then we have 3961.65 in our 403 account. So no changes.
Perfect. All right. Well, moving right along, let's go with Nick and Sean to talk about the Public Arts Committee and any updates that you might have for us.
Well, I guess sort of working backwards on this list. Black Lives Matter mural is it's installed at Banneker. Looks fantastic. Great turnout from the community on that. Great leadership by the artists and the Banneker. And a few of us did a call with the Banneker folks recently to talk about a dedication ceremony, which I believe is now set for this Friday.
Yeah, 4:30.
Sorry, I'm going to bring up some images. Should have been more prepared.
Oh, no worries. It's Friday at 4:30.
Yeah, Sean, is that time 100% locked in? I saw in the document there's a little bit of discussion about that. Yes, it's at 4:30, I believe. Still, okay. For all intents and purposes, it might start a little bit after that, but the artists can't make it till 5, so it's a whole agenda. You know, Bryony and Nick and Essence were involved in this, but we really kind of yielded to the advisory council to kind of take lead on that. But it's a good format, pretty inclusive in terms of what we've been wanting to do for in terms of dedication. Being more broad, having more interdisciplinary artists and performance and all kind of stuff that really, in a not long period of time, been able to deliver on that, which is really great. Let me see if I can get through the preview real quick.
I was there for about 4 hours or something the day that we were painting, and it was really great to see everybody come together and the way the Banneker kind of staggered volunteers to make sure that we were not all there at the same time and we were socially distanced and whatnot. It was a great day.
Going through photos here. This is Elm Street. Mixing paint. This is a really good image of government work here happening. One guy working, one guy watching. No, I'm just kidding. It was a really interesting process for all of us to go through. None of the artists have done a mural of this scale before. I had not done a mural of this scale, so figuring out how to scale it out appropriately, going through all the the designs. Raheem at the last minute really made the matter word very inclusive. So here's all the materials that we had for volunteers. And it was a very smooth process. I mean, we worked from 7 a.m. till probably 8 o'clock at night, I think, is when we finally wrapped up. And so these are Rachel came with her family and offered to document for us. So this is Matter, and this is kind of Raheem's layout of the kind of intersectional elements of it, which is really powerful. If you haven't seen it in completion, it's really great. And Eva Allen, who was involved in the People's Park mural and the Love This City mural for what is it, Mother Bears, helped us with the layout. So you can kind of start to see it come together. That's my dog that you guys just saw. And this is Rachel's children. It's just a very powerful set of photos. We had 83 volunteers. I think Nick, let's see, you should be coming up here because you essentially painted the M on Matters, right? Or on Matter.
Did some of it.
So yeah, it's been a really great, the layout is super rad, and it kind of ends with that. So that's just kind of, if you haven't seen it, definitely go on Elm. It's been also really nice. People have not been driving on it. They naturally kind of, we shorted up on the north side of Elm Street a little bit. And so there's a parking lane, and that was intentional, and people drive through that kind of parking lane now, which has been really nice. So people are kind of respecting it. So there's that. So.
And the dedication on Friday is virtual, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Just with, I don't know if you all heard this as well. You know, the state is rolling back on track. It's totally, I think, abandoning Back on Track and is releasing 2 new executive orders, I believe. So I think it's going to be similar to what locally we've been doing. So that's a good thing. We kind of were ahead of the curve. So that's just to be safe with that. You know, it's better to do a virtual. So it'll be our first time doing a virtual ribbon cutting in that kind of sense. So I think it will be overall very, it will go over very well. So.
One thing I wanted to clarify on that, Sean, are the speakers all coming in virtually, or are they going to be at Banneker and just community are engaging virtually?
Yeah, it's no, it's virtual. It's all virtual. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Like mentioned, Brian and Essence were on that call with the Banneker folks whenever it wasn't in the last week or so. Anything that either of you want to add from that we missed? Cool.
If anybody from Mission wants to attend, let me know. Otherwise, we're encouraging people to watch it through the Banneker Facebook Live page. But if obviously Nick Spiny, being part of the public art project approach, I assumed you all wanted to be on, so I'll send you the Zoom info. But it will be accessible. Encourage people to do the Facebook Live on Banneker, and we should have a press release that goes out tomorrow on that. So. But if you want to attend it, and be a part of the Zoom, just shoot me an email and I'll make sure you guys are on it.
Cool.
All right, moving along.
Yeah, then I guess on everything else, Trades Garage, 4th Street, Trades Plaza. I'm just gonna toss it over to you, Sean, in case you have updates on any of those.
Yeah, no real changes. I got a draft contract going out to Esteban this week. With Weber Group. He toured the facility. We've had a couple meetings on site with Esteban in the stairwell, and everything looking good there. Trades, we finally got it into appropriate budget scale and size. It had to be reduced 30%. That seems like a lot in terms of scale, but his original scale was for the project was pretty massive. So it actually is just, like I said, I think in previous meetings too, it's at a feasible scale, and it's more human in that sense. So it is going through the engineering and budgeting process right now to make sure we're on track. And then 4th Street, as the Public Art Planning Committee saw, we got the schematic designs and approved them. We ran it through the general contractor at 4th Street, and those are good to roll. Here, I can bring it up real quick.
One quick question. The staining of the concrete, was that resolved?
Yep.
Perfect.
They're not doing, it is, it's not going to be dyed. It's going to be, there's a different process that they're doing. They're going to coat the concrete, but it will be, that's been worked out.
As long as it's dark.
Yeah, it's dark. It is dark. I think I have the new proposal here. Yeah, so this is the new updated design and elevation. So any commissioners have questions about this piece or any of the other ones that I mentioned? So this is 4th Street, and this is kind of the rough maintenance plan of the coated material, the Matthews paint finish. But we're really excited. The sub is Ignition Arts, as you all know, very pro public art group in terms of fabrication. But I think the scale of this is just really powerful and will be very exciting for the community in general. So there's that.
What's the current
Oops.
date that we're looking at for completion? Do you know?
Let's see. Hang on. Let me look at my notes real quick and bring this back up. Sorry. Managing this.
I know it's changed several times.
Yeah. So the 4th Street is the end of 21 as a general construction project. That will mover give depending on, a rainy spring and how much they get done. But I don't know if you guys have seen it's going up pretty quick, and the trades garage is going up really quick. Sam just shared with me, he just texted me an image of the precast facade being put up. So that is slated for Q2 of next year as well, or summer, I think, maybe summer at the latest. But those projects are moving pretty quickly. Both installs for both garages will likely be the last step in the process. A lot of it has to do with contractors and who's on what and what is responsible and when things get signed over. But Josh, who is the project manager for the garages, both garages, is been in line and has been in communication with the artists. So we've had no hiccups, and we know the kind of expectation and timeline of that. Weber is the only one. The trades garage is the only one where we're unsure of their timeline right now, because they're obviously with COVID and what, traditionally them as fabricators is very much tied to theme parks and Disney and those kinds of things. So they might actually be able to fast track that project. We just don't know what their 21 looks like right now. So.
Perfect. Do you have any updates on other smaller projects? I know that there was a public art meeting on Friday. There was the 10th Street.
Yeah.
And,
just to update the committee, the 10th Street project has kind of fallen through. I don't know if it's COVID related, but the property owner, not the business owner, is a little uncertain in these times to do a mural addition, a variety of those kinds of things, which is totally understandable. But I've went ahead and when we were teeing up that project, we had not fully shifted to the RFQ model that we do, where we compensate people. I am compensating Allison, who was selected and who designed a mural with a grant, a small grant to kind of compensate that. Moving forward, though, if we do murals, we are budgeting in that compensation so that we're kind of moving forward with our equity and inclusion factor in terms of the public art stuff. What I also discussed in that meeting, and Elliot, Karen, feel free to drop in. We will have I'm going to hopefully release a RFQ for the 3rd Street median that is lived its life. It's time for a new artist to kind of update. Drew Etienne's design was really beautiful, really poetic, and really simple. And because of the paint that we purchased with the BLM mural, we will be incorporating that into the kind of color restraints, just because the 3rd Street median, we used exterior house grade paint mixed with some silica, and it's lasted this long, which is great, but it's in direct sun 365 24/7. So I'm curious to see how the traffic paint does and see if it gives it a little bit longer of a lifespan on the median. So we will be working on that project. I'm hoping to tee that up, get that locked in before the end of the year. And then, maybe that might be our first early spring project to kind of beautify Bloomington, especially if and when the students come back after spring, and maybe we get through the COVID stuff. We did discuss, there's been some rumblings of potentially some other mural requests, and we're going through that process and vetting those every which way we can. We tend to not accept, at this moment, we're not accepting any interest in public murals in the right of way that are based off of an individual request. But as you guys saw, we've done the Janeway project that was a nonprofit that came to the commission. We've done memorials in the past, so we're kind of vetting that process as always. But that's and then finally the thing we really focused on in the last meeting was the strategic plan. Thanks for Karen's hard work and everybody's hard work on the general strategic plan, really using that as a way to talk about the public art master plan, which we're due to update, and seeing where those things slot in, but also where these kind of conversations come into play in terms of, what kind of public art we want. I just had a great conversation with Karen about the origin of the Graduate Hotel project, thinking about what is the framework in the future for public-private partnerships for us to consider. What are the kind of opportunities we want to put forth for public art, but then also what are the ways we're engaging our constituents to understand what kind of public art they want to see in the community too. Overall, I think in terms of our public art collection, it's pretty diverse and pretty in terms of also we have a lot of, I think, individual active groups like Artisan Alley, who has beautified their building. We have, Mother Bears, which has a beautiful mural on it. So Secretly Group did an amazing project a couple of years ago. So, it's just kind of interesting to think about too, how much we lead and then how much the kind of the citizenry or the community leads in certain frameworks. And I think that's where the meat of the public art master plan is really going to be intersectional in that moment. So anyways, but I feel like I'm rambling now, so I'll let it to like Elliot or Karen or anybody else on that call.
I've got a question because I'm unsure of how it works. So you were just talking about how citizens or local organizations will have their own beautification projects or mural projects. And I saw a couple grant applications with that in the plans. Does the BAC have the power, or the city have the power to tell them no? Is it a conversation that they have to have with the city or have to have with the BAC? We tend to lead. That's a great question, Essence. Thank you for asking that. Our projects are always in the public right of way, right? So it's on public property, or it's on a building or a parking garage, or though we do public-private partnerships like we've done with People's Park historically. The Graduate Hotel would be argued as a public-private partnership, those kinds of things. When businesses are doing it solely, that it's private property, they have every right to in terms of pursuing murals, not signage, right? So there could be some debates that come into play there, but we tend to encourage a lot of businesses or property owners to pursue public art opportunities however they see fit. We've seen that with the hair studio and salon that's on the Beeline, has an amazing graffiti collection that has been that actually was a BUEA grant, one of the first ones for the Zone Arts grants, but has been a very successful
mural addition in our community. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but we don't really have now. If they want it to become part of the public art collection, or if there's opportunities, like for example on the Beeline, we do get memorial requests or public art requests on the Beeline, like we did with the Janeway Monument. That came to the Art Commission to be adopted because there had to be not only parks approval because it's a park, but also Art Commission approval to be granted in the right of way. But we all saw fit, our elected officials thought it was a good addition to the community. So there's that kind of stuff. Does that answer your question? I mean, essentially, no. We don't regulate pending what happens. We do try to encourage as much public art happening. For example, Your Art Here is a prime example of a public art installation mural site that has been going on for 13 years on 6th Street. That is not a billboard. A lot of people think of it as a billboard, but it's actually a public art piece. But that is totally privately led, and we have not really been involved other than maybe partnering on various projects. Rachel partnered with them for the Richard Ross project. So there's been a history of that, but we don't really control what private businesses put up per se.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
But I think that also reflects kind of the diversity of mural experiences. Frankly, a lot of private businesses, murals is their first go-to. It just is it's not a low-hanging fruit, but for some it is if you have a blank wall. So we've seen that with the studios over on 4th Street, on 2nd Street, as well as Artisan Alley is a prime example, and then Mother Bears. So.
Yeah, and I think that's where the master plan can be updated in clarifying where we can, what we're able to do, what is something that we will just guide you in the right direction and give you some pointers and where we actually need to get involved.
Mm-hmm. And another, like just a criticism that we've gotten age and age again, and we will continue to, is the Art Commission hasn't been as involved on the east side of town. Where our jurisdiction does exist, but like it is seen as, to some who live on the east side, an art wasteland. Like there's no art, there's a few traffic boxes and that's it. But I would say that's probably something that we're gonna have to visit in terms of our strategic plan, the public art master plan. Other questions on the public art stuff?
All right, Nick, do you need anything from commissioners in order to move forward with the updated master plan?
Not immediately. Like last week when we had a meeting scheduled, I ended up having to be out as well. I know you were out, Bryony. So we still need to reboot this. I did spend some time this weekend looking at where we left off on the master plan. So I guess maybe the one thing I do want to do here is just sort of affirm where we left off with committee participation. If I can get my calendar here to work. So Elliot, Karen, Rachel, Valeria, Bryony, Babette, Sam. Is there anyone else who wants to be on the Public Art Planning Committee and specifically wants to get involved in this master plan redraft?
I think you have pretty much everybody.
Cool. I'm fine working with that group. I just wanted to be inclusive and sort of reopen that door before we dove back into it. I've sort of reset my mind on sort of where we left off. So I will, let's see here. I just want to look real quick at when our next meeting is scheduled. December 4th. Yeah, so we're clear of the holidays at that point. I will get something out to folks by our midpoint check-in, so that everyone can do some reading, and sort of get their minds reset on it as well.
And that brings up a good point. I'm gonna ask Tyler to speak too. She's been rumbling, especially with experience with the BLM mural, and I think just observing us for the past year and plus a year about a community art guide. So Tyler, do you want to maybe talk about that?
Sure. We just realized with doing the Black Lives Matter mural that not many people know the public art process in terms of, presenting to various commissions, having a public, RFQ for artists and finalizing artists and going through the design process with artists and kind of implementing a public art project that's also engaging the community and volunteer management. So just maybe having a guide or a pamphlet that is informational for the community. So if there is a community group or just a group of community members that want to do a public art project, they kind of understand the many layers that is attached to it. That was just kind of something that we've noticed when we did the BLM.
Well, and also too, Tyler, you bring up a good point in essence to go back to your question, and Nick and Bryony too, and for other commissioners, the Housing and Neighborhood Development Department has a specific neighborhood improvement grant that allows for public art pieces. And we've gotten a lot of public art in some neighborhoods purchased that way or installed that way. And so for us to do this community art guide might help reinvigorate some of that, those improvement grants or those community block grants. We do want to see those things. We've seen, and I believe it was in the near West Side neighborhood, did an intersection mural with a local artist that did a pollen design that was really powerful. It was a neighborhood improvement grant. They went through the process. It just is a kind of an interesting thing that we want to encourage on the ground level, so to speak, in terms of neighborhoods and those things, especially as the community evolves. So
That could help us get stuff in the East Side.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
All right.
That's a really good idea, Tyler. I love that, and it kind of fits in with some of the stuff that we talked about months ago when we were talking about the master plan. But as you were thinking about the BLM mural, if there are any specific sort of questions or unknowns that that you feel like were popping up in the course of that conversation, feel free to shoot those my way. I'll make sure they're on the list for discussion.
I like this idea a lot. Is it like a how to get do public art, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially. Oh, sorry.
Cool.
Go ahead, Tyler. Yeah, at some point we had talked about including this as part of the master plan, but formalizing it and reinvigorating, I think, is a great way to go.
Yeah, I think when we talked about it before, the language we were using was sort of like reframing the master plan as a master plan and toolkit, so that the plan was not just something that was communicating to the community, to the citizenry, what we do, but sort of laying the tools out there for how the citizenry can engage and utilize the commission as a resource and a tool for them, for the community. And so while that may be part of that broader master plan, I do like sort of the way you put it, Tyler, sort of like whether it's sort of like a pamphlet or sort of a separate sort of how-to that can be pulled out of that, like a one sheet sort of version that can be sort of an introduction for folks when they ask about things. That's a really good idea.
I have a second just question that kind of fits in with what we're talking about right now, and it's more like maintenance stuff. I've just noticed the Bob Ross traffic thing. I drive by every day and it brings a smile to me every day. But the paint is kind of coming off quite a bit.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So I'm just reporting that, and
Yeah.
I don't know where to go from there, but
Sam, I appreciate that because I don't always have eyes on everything.
it never really looked like it had like a. I mean, it was finished in terms of painting, but it didn't have like a finish on it, like a sealant or something.
Yeah, it's some people clear coat, and some people you can. I think part of the traffic box program, the flaw in it is that it's on metal, and if you don't use the right kind of paint and primer and those kinds of things over time.
Yeah, it's like flaking off in chunks. So like they didn't use the primer.
Yeah. So I can look back into that, and we should look at also in the spring, just for the Public Art Planning Committee, maybe doing another traffic box program, like another series of a couple, because the one on Kirkwood and Adams just got replaced. There's a schedule of like replacing the older ones for newer ones and those kinds of things. But yeah, thank you for bringing that to my attention. That's very helpful.
Yeah, I think just that committee has been so I think so focused on all the big commissions that we've had over the last couple of years that I think, especially once we get past sort of the installation on some of these that are in the works, and we get past this master plan, for that committee, I do think it'd be good to focus on sort of looking at our current inventory, and things like that, maintenance, where we need refreshes, things along those lines. But sort of the comment that you made earlier, Sean, where we sometimes get feedback about the east side of town and lack of a public art. I think part of looking at that inventory is identifying where there are big gaps, I don't know, art deserts, if you will, and maybe looking for either businesses or neighborhood groups that might be good partners to work with.
Yeah, and focusing on some smaller sprinkling of art projects, I think there's a big benefit to that versus all the big projects. All right, anything else in regards to public art, or shall we move on to grants? All right, Sean, Rachel, do you have any updates in regards to grants?
I know Essence and Essence and Elliot volunteered to be part of the Recovery Forward cycle for the most recent round. So we're presenting those findings to the BUEA next week. Originally, the BUEA was supposed to meet today, and I had full intentions that the announcement would go out today and the application would go out today for the second round. But because of the holiday, their meeting moved. So it will be next week. We'll announce Recovery Forward grants. We received 23 applications and had a series of reviewers from the BUEA and BAC and some members from SPIA O'Neill School review for us. So it was a comprehensive thing for the BUEA, very successful. And we're, I think, happy with the recommendations that the panel has made, and we'll be announcing the second round of funding, or second application round, going into the holidays. But we've pushed back that timeline a little bit, and we'll be getting the word out about that with a press release next week. So that's where things stand with the BUEA Recovery Forward grant. And I think Rachel can speak to, we had a meeting last month, and we'll have a meeting in a few weeks about the BAC funding for next year. So I don't know if Rachel, you want to touch
yeah, I actually just have a question for you. So next week, both the award winners and they're voting on the first round of Recover Forward and launching the second round.
Yeah, we're opening the application portal for 4 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. And then the vote is next week for. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but those funds will be dispersed, at least the current round will be dispersed by the end of this year, and then same with the second round. So that kind of covers organizations for the next few months. But then we were discussing in the last BAC Grants Committee meeting, looking towards spring and what our like spring funding will look like. And we have more money this year. Sean, do you want to talk about what happened at council or anything like that? And like the goal that we have?
Yeah, I mean, we made the recommendation to increase it to 100,000 total for grants for next year, which was approved in October and August. I think that was part of the conversations. I think Bryony and Rachel, you both spoke at the council meetings, and so we have 100,000 available for like kind of under the guise of recovery forward. So I mean, it's under the control of you all, but under the kind of the general COVID response recovery forward. And it's kind of the BAC will be tasked with that $60,000 increase, essentially what you all want to do with it. And, what are the needs in the community and those kinds of things. So.
Yeah. So basically like having that 100,000 rather than 40,000, we were discussing in the last meeting, how do we want to set that up? Whether we, set it up into, we don't have to use it all in the spring grant cycle. So maybe we set up 2 grant cycles or 3 grant cycles next year, what that looks like. Or last year we didn't focus really on project, or this year, 2020, we didn't focus on project grants because we had to shift gears so quickly to support operational funding for more organizations that were impacted by COVID. So looking at, do we want to focus more on project grants this time around? Or do we want to focus the grants on connecting venues or projects within like the digital sphere? Because we just don't know what's going to happen with COVID. So do we support folks in their projects to specifically create digital art performances and whatnot? Essence, did you want to add anything? I know you had taken some notes as well on like who you wanted to reach out to and what ideas you had.
I don't have much to add at this point, but we did all agree, or most of us in the grants committee agreed to do some research on what other communities are doing in order to support their communities, whether in public art or with the grant cycles. So we'll have more to report back, some more ideas after this next meeting on the 20th.
Yeah. And I spoke with Jonah from the Buzzkirk to kind of get his take on what they have going on and what, their venues looking for and what needs they have. And so along with looking into what other communities are doing, the committee was going to continue to reach out to organizers and venues and such in town to kind of see what the need is for them as well, and whether it's looking at space rental or equipment rental to do digital projects. Sean, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I would just love to hear other commissioners' thoughts, concerns, and now that the state is kind of rolling back, even though we've been restrictive here, if they've heard of anything, or what the rest of 2020 and 21. I mean, I know Bryony, you have experience with conference design, but Karen and Babette and Elliot and Elizabeth, sorry that you were stuck in the waiting room for so long. Just what conversations you're having with community members and what you all are hearing or what you all are thinking, I think would be helpful in this part of the conversation.
I can tell you that most venues are moving things to 2022 at this point, from what we're doing.
IU is really banking on digital for fiscal year 21 as well, which goes into the middle of 22. So we're setting, at the museum at least, we're setting aside to like bring artists, things like that for in-person type stuff, but that's all just kind of, high hopes type situation.
I have a couple of thoughts. In a usual year, it seems as if BAC does not offer grants for individual artists, but it seems like this year we emphasized avoiding that because there are other supports for individual artists. But I wanted to make sure if my understanding was correct on that.
We actually do offer individual artist grants, but it's specifically for a project. So it's for the project support grants rather than operations. Like, we're not going to fund an artist studio, but we'll support a specific project. But this year in 2020 is kind of where we were like, we need to focus on organizations rather than individual projects, because we were running into the issue where a bunch of individual projects probably weren't going to happen just due to COVID. So we that's why we emphasized differently this year. Part of the reason. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's good to know and good to hear, actually. I'm glad to hear that. And then also, I really like the idea to have a public art guide or a community art guide. And even though I know that we've scheduled for the grants committee, like individual meetings with interested applicants, I feel like having a document similar to that on the grant side would be helpful as well, and just accessible online somehow. So I'll continue to think on that and come up with some ideas, particularly if anyone else thinks it's also a good idea. And then I think a lot about getting the word out about these grants. I know that there's outreach and like publicity points that are in our master plan. I think that with the increase in what our budget is going to be next year, like it makes sense to push for more people to apply so that we can spread that support out instead of concentrating on the same cycle of organizations that apply. And I know that we had some new people enter the cycle this last time, so that was exciting. And I just want to keep pushing for ways to get the word out. And again, I'll brainstorm on that too, whether it's social media or I guess that's the website. I don't know. How do we get people to?
Yeah, that is definitely a challenge and it's something that we need to tackle and kind of have a reckoning with the fact that we do need to communicate online, even though we have in a way avoided it for so many years.
Yeah.
And it's just figuring out the how. And that's a little bit of what I'm trying to do through the strategic plan implementation, is the how we are actually going to communicate.
Yeah, those are all great points. I would love to hear from Sam and Karen and Liz too. How are you guys feeling about everything? I mean, one thing to keep in mind too, right? There's the potential, even in this kind of lame duck Congress that we have, for more CARES Act funding. The Senate Majority Leader mentioned that earlier this week, that's the top priority. So who knows? We don't know what will come in terms of federal support. We're kind of keeping an eye on that. But yeah, I'd just be curious what you all are thinking or hearing or conversations or even, where you all are at.
Most of what I've been looking around at or what I've been seeing and hearing around work and things are everything is getting pushed back. The focus for right now is really mainly digital. And then things that are scheduled, the earliest things I have seen are over the summer, and that's sort of cloaked in a little veil of optimism there. But so I think there's a lot of people are working on mainly digital events and seeing how we can translate the things we normally do into virtual incarnations. Also, I really like Essence's ideas. I think those are both really worthwhile directions to go in that would really help in getting the resources we have out there to people.
I agree. I think this is the perfect time actually to work on some of these digital communications because I think I'm having less person-to-person, interactions. And so I think that kind of takes the place of it. But once we have these things, I think they'll be a lot easier to update on a yearly basis.
Yeah, in terms of planning or whatever, like at the mill, I don't know. I haven't really been involved with a ton of that, so I don't know what, but I think that we were trying to kind of do small events, but I think that that's been pushed back. And I know our like Collide thing that I kind of run has just totally transitioned to a YouTube show with no talk of when it will be in person again. So I don't have a ton to add, but we haven't talked about an end.
Yeah.
This isn't looking at it from a local perspective, but I will say, just from my day job, there is a growing optimism in like the live music booking community that there will be some touring and therefore like larger scale events by like Q3 next year. Like there are some larger festivals that seem to be seriously considering preparations for things. So, obviously that could change, but it's just like reading tea leaves. It's more optimism than I had heard from folks like a month or two ago. So, obviously that doesn't necessarily translate to hyper localized organizations, but if that's useful to anyone.
Yeah, I think just as we kind of get through, the next stretch, and as kind of things potentially calm down for everyone, post election fatigue and fall crunching of getting things done. I mean, I feel like my October was busier than my previous October. So, just being kind of plugged in and asking other artist groups. I know we've been heavily involved with Arts Forward Bloomington. I know, Brian, you've been heavily involved in that. Babette has been a tremendous resource for us too. Just asking what people's feelings are, what the needs are, and just bringing that to these commission meetings in the next couple months will help. I think the grants committee and also the public art committee as a whole, just so we don't get lost in translation from notes from that meeting to the larger meetings. But I think it's just good for us to kind of just keep asking and seeing where people are at and how people are feeling. It's like we got this, the ebb and flow of like basically programs to be on a 30-day turnaround is kind of the new norm, which is kind of unfortunate in terms of getting the word out, but being able to pivot. I have a request that came in today for a 5K Hoosier half, thinking that it might happen in April. So people are feeling a little more optimistic. I think the Pfizer vaccine seems promising for folks. So we'll see how that shakes out. But we do have quite a bit of money to distribute out in the community and being strategic about that. And 21 will be a good year for the city. Beyond that, it gets a little there's going to be tightening of some funding, and that's just something for us to be aware of.
Perfect. Anything else regarding grants?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then let's move right along. I spoke a little bit about the strategic plan. I'm working on how this is going to be implemented. And apologies, somebody just drove up and it's a little chaotic here. So I'm implementing that, but I had asked you all at the last meeting if there's any particular areas that you want to focus on or that you want to kind of take leadership and then the implementation of. And I haven't heard back from anybody. So I'm at this point proceeding with how I would envision applying all of this. But if there's anything that you want to kind of claim ownership over or say, hey, I'll help you with this, please drop me an email, send me a message, let me know what it is that you'd like to spearhead.
Bryony, is it is it worth it to really revisit this? I mean, we had originally had a group of people that were putting together this plan, and maybe either asking for volunteers or planning to address this at one of our general meetings, sort of how we operationalize that, so that, you know, there are a couple things in there I'm not even sure what they mean. So if we could get a sense for how there could be processes based on that, it might be easier for people to decide where they want to put their efforts.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's part of what I'm working on. But if there's somebody who's, you know, clearly like into education and wants to tackle that, then I can work on those processes and what that looks like with that person. But otherwise, I'll come up with a basic plan that needs to be worked on as a collective. I'm just creating the first kind of draft of how it could all fall into place.
Would just to propose this, December will be a light month, I think, for us. Do we want to, you know, I can trim out a lot on the agenda, Bryony, you know, I can work on that, but, you know, Karen, we could carve that out as a general discussion and like time ourselves and give it a half hour, you know, at the next meeting. I don't think we'll have any guests, and we won't have much to update as we get into the holidays, obviously.
Yeah, it sounds good by me. All right. We talked about the public art master plan. So, Sean, if you can give us a Waldron update.
Yeah. So, just so you know, we launched a task force. Maya Michelson and Valerie Pena are the task force kind of co-chairs. There was a nomination form that was sent out. I think I sent it out to a few folks. I know the BAC will have representation at some level. I'm not sure what that should be decided by the end of the next week. But there'll be, you know, a variety of community stakeholders. Obviously, you know, we're doing our due process in terms of the transfer. We did some funding for the Waldron in our 21 budget. But it looks like just with COVID, it's not like the buildings needs to be used right now in this moment or in the coming months, frankly. So we're working through that and have a task force to make recommendations for the future use in the future of the building. So is there any questions I can answer on that or any concerns or thoughts?
I have a quick one, just as that task force is being assembled. I know there are a lot of stakeholders in the neighborhood, you know, who we need to consider. But has there been any overt outreach? And I don't know if this actually would create a conflict of interest, but has there been any overt outreach to WFHB to maybe make sure that they have someone that's representing their perspective on that task force?
I can't speak to the task force because Maya and Valerie are behind it, but they have been very involved in conversations. We've had meetings with the mayor with them. So yeah, if they're not feeling like they have a seat at the table, we'll make sure I can loop back on those kind of conversations. But that's good feedback to hear. But yes, I will try to investigate that.
Yeah, I think that's one that we just have to observe and wait as it comes along. Any other questions? Or any other insight? All right,
Yeah.
Rachel.
Yeah, I have some more insight. I actually spoke with someone last night on, and Sean, you can probably speak more to it, but there's a graduate class at IU that is coming up with proposals.
Yeah.
Did you say that already and I missed that?
No, that's a good, yeah.
Yeah, so at O'Neill, I'll just let you explain it. I'm really tired.
Yeah, no worries. You know, it's there was a little, anyways, it's Mark Levin's class. They do an economic development project. And, you know, when that happened in August, when the announcement came through, we reached out to Mark Levin's class. He normally focuses on like the BEAD and like a development grant project that we've actually tried to apply for, like the asphalt project through Bloomberg Foundations. but we asked them this year to focus on the Waldron. And that was also to just reassure the public that there's no direction or no decision made, and we're just weighing a lot of different options from having a task force. You all have been aware of the Cardinal BAFT BPP initiative, and then the Mark Levin class as an additional kind of framework to diversify the kind of approaches and considerations for the building. And we'll give those to the task force as well. So all in due process. Well, I'm glad they reached out to you. That's great. So that's good that they're still working on it, at least.
Yeah, and they said it's their projects are due by the end of November. So some of you might be hit up by someone in the classes, but yeah, I spoke with Casey and we have some cool ideas. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, well, if there's nothing else, then we just have commissioner announcements. Any updates from anybody? Nick?
This is less of an update and maybe a question that I just occurred to me as we were on here. So coming up on January 21, there are actually a few commissioners whose terms are set to expire. I know Rachel and myself for sure, and actually looking at the website, Babette and Quentin are listed as expiring. That doesn't seem right. So I don't know if the dates are wrong, if they're at a partial term, but I just wanted to confirm that that's incorrect.
Maybe they mean me instead of Babette, because Babette is new, but I came around not long after Quentin.
It might be that you fill a term, a specific term, but you'll be able to re-up. So that might be correct, because we had people that resigned midterm or left or passed, unfortunately, right? So there's that kind of stuff too. So yeah. It might be, I'll look in. You should get a email from the clerk's office about re-upping. What is internally tracked is that this was adopted before I got to the city. You can serve 2 consecutive terms, so 2 3-year appointments. Beyond that, you should opt out. Now, the council and the clerk will not regulate that. We regulate that internally. So, Nick, thank you for bringing that up. But nobody is going into their consecutive term or their second, or at the end of their second term. So you all should be able to re-up.
Cool. Yeah, personally, I am happy to continue. I just wasn't sure if there's anything I had to do.
That's good to know that you want to continue. If your terms are coming up, who else is? So you said Liz. Who else is on there?
No.
Rachel.
The website lists Rachel, myself, Quentin, and Babette.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if this makes a difference, but Rachel and I are both mayoral, and Quentin and Babette are council appointees.
Yeah, the clerk should email, but I'll follow up. Rachel, I assume you want to serve a second term?
No, I'm just kidding. Yes.
And I assume Babette will. Well, Babette just filled a term. Same thing with Quentin. So I'll double check on all that. So you all should get an email that says, do you want to, I think once you're on, it's easy. You don't have to reapply. But yeah, we'll try to track that internally. We had that kind of happen where we had Alon step down and then somebody else slipped up and didn't and reapplied. So that kind of term, it's tracked internally for us. So that was adopted, that you serve 2 consecutive terms. Now you can come back. So if you really love the work that we're doing and you want to come back, you have to opt out for a 3-year cycle and then you can reapply. But once again, it's split between the mayoral and common council in terms of how we appoint people.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much sums it up. Anybody have any other comments, questions, concerns?
I have a small announcement. I've got, segue into a Sean thing, but I've got at the mill, I have some of my own paintings up right now, which no one can really come, but they're on Instagram if anyone wants to see the Dimension Mill paintings about motorcycles. But Sean, I forgot to follow up with you about possibly doing helping me find other artists. Basically, I put my art up because I didn't have anyone else to do it. So I need to get more artists just to show work. It's a very low, like not that many people see it. It's a low stakes thing.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned possibly doing something with Esteban. So that'd be cool. Or just other artists. If anyone has other artists who just want to show it, and basically what it comes down to is it's an office space. If anyone has artists that would want to show there, send them my way.
Yeah, what I can do probably for the whole commission, because I was just talking about this with Karen earlier today too. We have an artist database that people can opt into via the website, and we have like 150 respondents, and it lists their web. So like you could call that for sure. And what I could do is upload a version that you all would have access to on a Google Drive. So if you do get inquiries, you have, and it catalogs what people are interested in too. So whether it's a big spreadsheet, but it's like visual arts, music, poetry, performance, right? So you can kind of find and replace or find and track however you want. But yeah, to follow up real quick too on the Esteban thing, he'll be wanting to host workshops. Obviously they'll probably be digital, but I think the Mill help co-hosting a workshop for the design panels for his piece would be really great. And then there could be a version where maybe for part of the show, pending COVID restrictions, maybe the proposed designs are up for a few days and people can, he can get feedback from folks that way. But I know he's been working with the First Nations Cultural Center at Purdue and the First Nation Cultural Center at hopefully at IU. I think he's been involved and shot some emails out. So I'll close that loop with you guys soon.
Cool.
Perfect.
Also, with his proposal stuff, is it that people may kind of help design them? Is it that people will literally like carve a tile, or they like design it and then like that other company like 3D prints them, right?
Yeah, so they'll draw. The way he explained it most recently when we did the garage tours is people will think of themselves as a geometric form. So like it's a 10 by 10 grid, right? Or 10 by 10 inch piece of paper. And people can draw their geometry of themselves or whatever that is for them. He has kind of a guided workshop towards that. That drawing then gets manipulated into like a 3D image that he will help them do, or he might do. And then that will ultimately get transferred into the kind of larger codex of the tile work. So they wouldn't actually carve it, they would be drawing themselves. And so the physical embodiment of the community would be in these geometric forms. As how he's been thinking about it and engaging it from the most recent update. I haven't got, since we're not under contract yet, I haven't asked for like a workshop plan and all that kind of stuff, since we're still reviewing drafts. But that's how he explained it to people at the garage tours, which is really beautiful. I think it's like, that's going to be so cool to see. I can actually, let me find this real quick. I'll show you what it was in his proposal. Bring up my downloads.
Yeah, one of my coworkers was at that tour, and she was like, "Oh, we should carve them at our place." And I was like, "I don't think we actually carve them, but we would all be excited to be involved in whatever way."
That's great. Yeah, here I'll show you all just so it makes sense real quick. This will be easier. Right here. So, oh, good God. Right here. So you see the hand sketch, how it's turned into a 2D design, and then it's 3D printed. So that's kind of how like anybody could potentially draw this. So he's going to involve elementary school kids and a variety of those things. So we would I think the Mill would make sense for just like a neighborhood hosting opportunity for us to consider. And I think it would be great to involve. I mean, I feel like the Mill folks is the perfect audience for this kind of project.
Yeah, and I mean, our building's pretty locked down, but we have a big outside patio, and we'd figure something out.
Yeah, or maybe it's just online, maybe like virtual, which is, I think, the way things are going to be for a while. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the timing. when it all actually happens. All right. Well, anybody else have anything else to add? Otherwise, we'll adjourn extremely early. I don't think we've ever ended this meeting so early at 6:10. But you know, miracles happen. All right, everybody, have a good evening.